Today we are joined by the lovely Abby. Say hello.
Hello.
Hello, Abby. Welcome.
Welcome. And what are we discussing today, Rubyford?
Rubyford?
Yes. It is a very...
Discussing... Wait, I'll show you a picture.
Okay. Oh. Let me show you guys the dog real quick. I'll be right back.
Okay.
We are discussing the epic Star Wars.
Yay! Oh, that's so cool.
What would you call it? Like the epic, like it's not a trilogy, so what would you call it? Like what is the whole cluster of the movies called?
Franchise, I guess?
Franchise, yeah, we're discussing the franchise. Oh, look at that dog!
Say hello.
Hi, little poopy! Oh my gosh!
Hi.
Hi, baby.
Hello. Alright, he has to go back because he's really dirty.
Okay, so we're gonna try to cram all the Star Wars franchise movies into this episode, which I don't see how that's gonna happen unless we talk super fast like we were, at an auction, you know how they do like 25.
Yeah.
We're
Alright.
not gonna do that.
Yeah.
So.
And today we are joined by super expert Star Wars fan, Abby.
He's a super expert at being a Star Wars fan.
How big of a Star Wars fan are you?
Well, I've watched like all of the movies a million times. I've played probably a good 10, 15 of the games. I've read over 100 of the books. I have a action figure collection of over 300 figures, over 200 figures, and yeah.
Wow, you're one collecting person.
Yeah, I'm a very big collector.
Okay. So, okay, so without further ado, we're gonna get started with the first episode. Wait.
Are we doing this in order that they are released? Or
Chronological order.
No, I don't want to do that.
Why?
Because that's the whole thing about Star Wars. You gotta, the way that they were released. Freaking, they did that for a reason. Okay, they had the first one that ever came out was in 1977.
Yeah, that was the New Hope.
A New Hope, and they did 3, right?
They did, yes.
And that was in the middle that they started of the story.
Yeah.
So they started in the middle, and they did 3 films, which was A New Hope in 1977, The Empire Strikes Back in 1980, and The Return of the Jedi in 1983. Now, from 1983 to 1999, which is a 16-year gap.
Yeah.
There's a 16-year gap, and still people were crazy about this, and they knew what they were doing when they were doing this. So they go 16 years, and then they go to the very beginning of the story. So the way that they were released was middle, beginning, and then very end.
Okay.
That's how we should do it.
Really? Okay, we'll do that. Abby, do you want to start with the original trilogy, or do you want to start with the prequels?
I'm good with either one.
Okay, let's do the original trilogy then. Alright, so right now we're going to start off in 1977. Mr. George Lucas just came out of making American Graffiti, where he met his best friend and future star, Harrison Ford, where they would go on to make a genius film known simply as Star Wars. Now,
you gotta enter in the Star Wars, theme song.
Abby, do you want to sing the Star Wars theme song with me?
No, you answered it again.
Oh.
You don't want to?
I don't think so.
Well, okay, then I'll do it. Ruby, do you want to join me?
Okay, go.
Ba da 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 da.
We're too offbeat.
Oh, okay. Well,
Down.
all right. So this film moved.
No, it's like,
Okay, this film like completely rejuvenated the idea of science fiction. It took like inspiration from old space serials, namely what was it? Abby, do you remember?
What's the name of that movie? Oh, I'm sorry. Am I allowed to swear?
What?
Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, you can swear.
Okay.
Am I allowed to swear?
Metropolis.
Did you not hear me? Have I not said a cuss word?
Okay, Metropolis. Yeah, and with Ford films like old westerns and Kurosawa samurai epics, and this completely revamped on how it goes. And the funny thing about Star Wars is that it didn't start off very promising. It was actually most likely saved in the edit of the film. And in my research, I learned that when Lucas finished the first cut of the film, he showed it to his BFFs Spielberg and De Palma, the guy who made Scarface and all those films. And after he finished it, De Palma hated it. He thought it was like the worst thing ever. He said it made no sense and the title crawl was way too long and it was like blah blah blah. And if you've ever seen any of the deleted scenes, you would kind of agree. It really kind of lacked, because in the beginning, during the that Starfleet battle in the beginning of A New Hope, where Darth Vader comes in and kidnaps Leia, and he's all like, "You're a member of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor." It would cut to Luke just meandering around in what is that planet called again?
Tatooine.
Yeah, Tatooine. So he's just like hanging around Tatooine, just meandering around, and then it would cut back to the epic battle, and then back to Luke just doing whatever. And then he would meet up with his best friend Biggs, who we all know and love, and this other girl that I've never heard of. And then they just cut them out of the film, and I would agree.
That brings me to my next question.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know this in the first time that we're watching A New Hope, but Leia is Darth Vader's daughter, right?
Right.
So he kidnaps his own daughter. What was he planning to do? Like, do you think he was planning, his intentions were to hurt her, really, or what?
What do you think, Abby?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?
She was asking, what do you think Darth Vader's endgame was with Leia when he like imprisoned her? Because he knows that she's his daughter, right?
No, actually, he doesn't realize that until episode 6.
Really? So, yeah, Ruby.
Because I thought this was after. Isn't this after? He finds out when he turns into Darth Vader. He shortly thereafter finds out about her death, about Padme's death, and of course the twins. Or did they just not tell him that she didn't have the babies, or what?
What?
Oh yeah, no, he didn't know that that the baby survived at all until he met Luke.
Okay, so he didn't know that the babies had been split off. They just had told him that Padme died and the babies died too, or what?
Yeah, because at the end of Revenge of the Sith, the Emperor basically told him, "Oh, you killed Padme," and that's it. And that's all he said. All he knows is that Padme died.
Okay. See, that was what I was asking.
Okay. So.
What exactly he had told him.
Yeah. So in this grandiose intro to this epic space opera, my question is to you: when was the first time you guys seen this film, and what did you feel when first viewing it?
We didn't see this film. We saw the film.
What?
Because you were like, when did you first see this film? Saw.
Oh, excuse me. I didn't realize this was a grammar podcast.
I am a fucking grammar Nazi, bro. You should already know that.
Okay, that's the worst kind of Nazi.
I know, right?
Okay. All right. So, what did you guys first think when you saw this film?
I mean, I immediately loved it. I mean, of course, it was shitty, effects, but it's like the movie was made in 1977, so that was expected. But being a kid and watching it, I mean, I think, just like you said, I think it was really the birth of me even enjoying sci-fi. I wasn't really into sci-fi at a young age, so I think that was definitely, that's what birthed that interest of sci-fi for me. I liked it.
All right. What about you, Abby?
Yeah, it was really mind blowing for me as a kid. I think it was the first sci-fi movie I'd ever seen, and it totally changed my life. I was obsessed from the minute I saw it.
Really?
Yeah,
How?
who didn't want a fucking lightsaber after seeing that, right?
Yeah.
Oh snap! So, how obsessed were you?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I literally, within the year that I first saw Star Wars for the first time, I had already, absorbed all of the movies by themselves, but also the expanded universe that was the canon at the time. I'd already fully read up on basically everything that takes place after episode 6 and everything, and I joined Star Wars forums at 8 years old, theorizing about what would happen in episode 3 before it was released and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Oh snap! So.
And did you like, Abby, did you like the way that they released the films, that they did middle, very beginning, and then very end?
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
She was asking, did you like the order of the films that were released, like with the original trilogy and then the prequel trilogy?
Honestly, I did, and I think I don't ever plan on having kids, but if I ever did have kids, I would show them in release order as opposed to chronological order, because I feel like it's a stronger story seeing the original trilogy first and then seeing the prequel trilogy.
Okay. So what did you?
That's how I would do it too.
So what did you
That's how
guys?
I've been doing it. I've been trying to show them every movie, but they won't sit long enough.
Oh well, wait till
I
they're
don't know.
older.
I don't know if they're that interested in it. Nowadays, they're more interested in the Lego movie or what's my son really into? He sees some kind of stuff that doesn't even make sense to me. I'm like, what the hell are you watching, bro?
It's kind of funny because the guys who made the Lego movie was supposed to make a Star Wars film, but then they got fired.
Oh.
And we'll talk about that in a little bit once we get there. And so what did you guys think about Luke when you first saw him?
I mean, what do you mean? Did I like him?
Yeah, did you like him? Was he kind of like a whiny person? Was he kind of bleh?
He didn't really rub me wrong the first movie. I think he rubbed me wrong more the second movie where he was complaining to Yoda, when Yoda was training and stuff. I think that's when I was like, oh, he's a brat,
What do you think, Abby?
Me?
Yeah.
I actually liked him a lot more than I do now as a character. He was actually my favorite character whenever I first saw the movie, but my opinion has greatly changed since then.
Really? Why? Well, how did it change?
Because mostly I ended up becoming a lot more attached to Han Solo.
Oh, so you're into the more bad boy type.
Not initially, actually. Whenever I first watched A New Hope, I did not like Han. I didn't like him at all.
Why? Because you think it was he only wants it for the money.
Yeah, I thought he was annoying.
Yeah, Han has a really good character arc because he goes from the guy who's just, trying to get by, trying to, get money and avoid, he he owes all these people, he owes Jabba the Hutt. You know, he's like in a bad situation, right? But then he starts showing like a soft side to him where he starts caring about Leia and about, you know, the rebellion and helping out and stuff like this. So then you kind of get like a soft side for him. And I did, and I'm fucking pissed at Kylo Ren for that very fucking reason.
Oh, snap. So, what did you guys think Leia's role in Solo's arc is in the whole thing?
What do you mean?
Did like Leia help him become a better person? Did she convince him that it's not all about the money, it's about, you know, saving the galaxy?
I think so. I think she played an important role of kind of reining him in and showing him that there's bigger things to care about than money.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he had a soft side for her, so that's what really he started thinking.
Yeah. I think that's when we finally see the cracks in the armor with Solo, with the cracks in the walls when he first meets Leia, and he finally realizes that maybe being what was he? Was he a smuggler?
Yeah, he was a smuggler.
Being a smuggler isn't all that great. Maybe there's a higher purpose that I can be doing. And what we see, it's the thing about Star Wars. It's very reminiscent to World War II, and it's very much like the Empire is very much like the Axis powers, and it's very much like how we see fascism and all that, and how the rebels are like the Allies trying to destroy fascism and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love that. I love that about Star Wars, is that it's always the rebels, you know, that are trying to actually do good. That's definitely, you know, one of the main reasons why I love this franchise.
Mm-hmm. Now, what did you think about Kenobi in the New Hope?
You know, he was just, you know, and I thought he was just gonna be like an old man that was there, you know, giving Luke information.
Yeah.
You know, he was an old Jedi. I didn't know that he was much more than what they said about him, you know, in the first movie. Once you start seeing, you know, the other movies, then you're like, oh.
Right, and because it was Lucas followed a traditional hero's journey in this, and one of the things about the hero's journey is the role of the mentor, and that's what Kenobi is to Luke. And in the journey, in the traditional journey, the mentor is supposed to die really early on, so the protagonist could fully realize his potential on his own. And that's what happens in this film too, where Darth Vader smites him down, but then he becomes stronger than he can ever imagined. Is that the line?
That what?
Was that the line?
Yeah.
Okay. So, what did you think, Abby, about Kenobi?
It's hard to remember what I thought of him initially.
Yeah.
Just because being like a little 7-year-old girl, I don't think I really cared about like the wise old man type character.
Okay.
But as I've gotten older, I've definitely garnered like a much greater appreciation for his role in the trilogy and just the franchise as a whole. But especially in like episode 4, he's like, you really do see his sappiness that they bring to like the prequel trilogy and the Clone Wars series, and I love that. I love the idea of this like super sassy old man.
Okay. Do you think Kenobi was looking over Luke so he could fully realize his path to become a Jedi?
I think they say that in the movie. I think they say that at the end of one of the prequels that you know, whenever Luke is given to Lars on Tatooine, that said Obi-Wan stays nearby.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So he was watching over him this whole time.
All right. So we meet Luke in the beginning of his journey, and then we go on into the climax of his journey and what is considered to be the greatest installment of Star Wars to date, The Empire Strikes Back. Now, what's our initial thoughts on this masterpiece of a film?
I thought it was great because you get to see Yoda.
Okay.
No, but you get to see. Hang on.
Yeah. And the thing about
You get to see, give him the lightsaber. Where this is where Obi-Wan gives him the lightsaber, right?
Yeah.
The lightsaber.
I think he gives it to him in A New Hope, saying it was his father's, and then he finally uses it in Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another great thing about that.
Yeah.
That we get to see him use it. And that whole rescue, like at the beginning with Han and Luke, where he has to, cut open that animal.
Oh yeah.
In there, I was like, oh my god.
Would you guys do that?
I don't know. I couldn't. I don't think I could.
Oh snap. Well, what about you, Abby?
I don't know. I want to be like, oh yeah, I totally could, but realistically, like.
But you're like on the edge of death. You're about to freeze.
No, I would freeze to death with that animal. I'd be like, we're gonna both freeze here to death, little animal. Well, I'm not gonna kill you. I would never do that.
You're not gonna kill you, and then you take out a burger and you just like stuff your face in it.
I don't eat burgers
Oh.
unless they're veggie burgers.
Oh, okay. Excuse me. So, there's that really great turning point scene where Luke is taken to that cave and he's hanging upside down, and that's when he finally uses the Force, and that's when we learn that he actually is.
I had to get taken by a Yeti.
Oh yeah, Yeti. I don't think that's what it's actually called. What do you know what it's called?
Look, it's basically a Yeti.
Oh yeah. Do you know what it's actually called, Abby?
Oh, Wampa.
That's a Wampa.
Oh yeah, Wampa, yeah.
You just got learnt, Ruby.
I also like that we get to first see those AT-ATs.
AT-ATs?
Those machines, the big machines.
Okay. You call them AT-ATs? I've heard some other people call them AT-ATs.
Are they
People
AT-ATs?
are uncultured swine.
Oh, snap. Did you hear that, Ruby? Abby just called you out.
No, she was good.
Okay, never mind.
No, AT-AT is the proper way.
No! It looks like I was in the wrong this whole time. Looks like I was called out. So, yeah, that was a pretty epic scene. So, what do you guys... This is also the scene where Leia and Solo got mad at each other for whatever reason. And then Leia's like, you know what? I don't need you. And then she starts making out with Luke. Like, oh.
Yep.
Which was...
That's that part.
Which is...
She was just trying to make him jealous.
With her brother.
But she didn't know it was her brother.
Okay.
Yeah, in Lucas's defense, he had not written Leia to be his sister yet.
Oh, he just thought about it later on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was written in later.
That's the thing about Lucas is that he always makes up things on the spot, it seems like.
Yeah.
And I've heard stories about him writing scripts on the way to set.
What the hell?
He did that a lot in the prequel trilogies. And
You're like, and it shows.
oh yeah. And then Yoda. We find Yoda. What did you guys think of Yoda?
I mean, I definitely was interested because it's something, like, oh, there's like going to be this whole training going on, like we're going to see Jedi powers, and it was
Mm-hmm. What did you think, Abby?
Whenever I first watched the movie, I always found the training scenes with Yoda very boring because my little 7-year-old brain didn't understand the concept of nuance and philosophy.
Yeah.
So everything just kind of went over my head. But again, as I've grown older, I've garnered a great appreciation for the training scenes and learning more about the philosophies of the Jedi and all that kind of stuff.
So what philosophies did you learn while watching the training scene?
The entire concept of how the Jedi aren't supposed to actually fight. They are meant to protect and keep the peace. And oh my goodness. It's been a while since I've watched Empire Strikes Back, granted, so I can't remember everything like off the top of my head.
Yeah. Well, there's... yeah.
Oh, also learning more about like the Force, of how it's like this omnipresent, like not necessarily being, but this thing that just kind of exists in all living things is pretty cool. How like everything is the Force and the Force is everything.
Yeah.
Pretty neat concept in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely another thing too. Whenever they start explaining the Force, that's very interesting.
Yeah. Is that a religion you can get behind, Ruby? Yeah?
Jedi.
Okay. Well, there are some people who do practice it as a religion in real life. Yeah.
With lightsabers and everything.
I don't know about that. Do they do lightsabers?
I was just looking at this video on YouTube, and there's one that says 10 reasons why the Jedi were messed up.
Okay, let's hear it. Do you want to hear it, Abby?
Oh yeah, totally.
Okay, let's hear it.
Let me see if I can play it. This sentence is grammatically correct. Okay, here we go.
Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Avila. Now when I was growing up, I was always the kid.
What is this kid? Who's this guy?
And the first thing I thought to myself, wow, the Jedi are...
Oh, they can't have sex. What's up with that?
This environment...
I thought he was gonna just like, like ballista.
Well, that's okay. We can go about like the corruption and the thing about the Jedi Council in a bit once we get into the prequels. Also there was that one scene in the Dagobah training where Luke sees Darth Vader and then he's like, I'm gonna chop your head off, and he chops his head off, and then it ends up underneath the mask. It's actually Luke's own head.
Oh
Ah!
yeah, he goes like, isn't that whenever he's like walking through like the forest or something like that, and he ends up seeing the dead body or something of Darth Vader?
Yeah. What do you guys think that means?
Well, obviously, we knew it meant that was his father.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that now.
Yeah. It could also mean that Luke, it might also end up having the same fate as his father. He might also end up going into the dark side.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I always, well, not always, but that's how I take that scene now is it's Luke facing his own darkness.
Yeah.
And that is one thing that I find really interesting about like the entire training sequence in Empire Strikes Back is I think a lot of people forget that Luke actually failed his training really hard.
Oh, because he leaves.
He leaves to go help Solo.
He said, I don't need no stinking training.
Yeah, and oh man, I was gonna say something. But it might also, I highly doubt this was intentional, but you can argue that it might foreshadow very loosely his personality in the sequel trilogy, how he becomes like an old shell of a man, very distrustful of the Jedi and everything.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, kind of like how his father Anakin was very like distrustful of the Jedi Council, and now Luke is very distrustful of Jediism as a whole. Yeah, and now he just wants everything to the Jedi was just to go away. So what did you guys think? Oh yeah, and this is the film with the very famous, what is known as one of the biggest plot twists ever, that Luke is actually Vader's son.
Yeah, it ends that way, but he's still not sure because he asked Yoda in the next film before he dies, and he confirms it, and he tells Luke about Leia as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what did you guys think about when you first heard that plot twist?
I thought it was definitely a twist. I was definitely surprised by it.
What about you, Abby?
I wish I could remember what I initially thought. I can't remember my exact thoughts regarding the plot twist, but I know as a whole, my mind was completely blown by that movie, even more so than A New Hope. So I want to say that I was completely blown away by that twist ending. Or that's not a twist ending, but plot twist.
Yeah. I know when Lucas was writing the script, he purposefully wrote in like a fake dialogue exchange between Luke and Vader for that scene, to only replace it with the "I'm your father" line later on, and he wanted
so that nobody would leak it.
Yeah, and when James Earl Jones, the person who played Darth Vader, well, the voice at least, was reading it, he was like, "This is a lie. This can't be true." But it was, because search in your heart and you know it to be true, right, Abby?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then
I thought it was a really good twist. I mean, like Abby said, whenever he said it, you're like, what?
do you think Luke might have took up Vader on his offer to rule the galaxy as father and son? No. You don't think so?
I think Luke is too idealistic.
Okay. So, and also in this film, we get to be introduced to one Calrissian, Lando.
Oh, Lando! Yeah, we first see Lando here.
Yeah, and he is known as like the traitor, the Cassius, the Brutus of the film. But he ends up, winning them over again. But,
yeah, he ends up letting them go.
Yeah.
He was forced to cooperate.
Yeah, I was not expected to see the whole plot twist of him betraying Solo and Leia on Cloud City.
Oh, me neither.
I thought that was... And I think in this film we also get to be introduced to Boba Fett, even though we don't hear his name. We never hear his name in the entire trilogy. But that's when we get to introduce to him. He is considered to be...
You hear his name in the prequel.
Huh?
You hear his name in the prequel trilogy.
Well, you hear his dad's name, Jango Fett.
No, he calls him Bubba. He says Bubba.
Oh yeah, that's true. We actually he doesn't officially get his name until the very infamous holiday special that came out, which finally reveals his name to be Boba Fett.
Actually, that was the origin of his character, because the holiday special actually came out before Empire Strikes Back, and they put him into Empire Strikes Back because he had such a positive reaction from the fans.
Ooh. Wow, I didn't know that. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
See, that's why you're on the podcast, because you're the expert. So, yeah. So, what did we think about Lando in this film? Do we like him? Do we not like him? Do we think he's a scumbag for betraying them? Does he need to be forgiven?
I really don't like. I don't think he rubbed me anyway. You know, I felt like he was just. I wasn't as focused on him. I wasn't as focused on his character.
Why? Because he's black.
Oh, what the hell? Why would you even say that?
I don't know. Okay, what about you, Abby?
Other than the fact that he, you know, betrayed them or whatever, like nothing else, like in the other scenes, like really stood out to me. Other than, you know, I think really he was more impactful in the next movie,
Yeah.
Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I like Lando, period.
Yeah.
I really like the Lando movie that just came out recently with Childish Gambino, but I'm saying like this particular film.
Yeah.
What we're talking about.
Yeah.
What about you, Abby?
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree with what she said.
Okay.
That was like my exact thought.
All right. Awesome. And also, I know that in Stranger Things, some show that no one likes,
What?
it's.
Take that back right now.
I take it back. It is used. Lando is used as like the traitor in the Sheep and Wolf clothing, and I don't remember which character. Dustin, yeah.
Dustin is always the one that was like, Lando, I told you that.
Yeah. Who is he calling a Lando in the show?
Hopper. He's saying that Hopper is working with the government when they're first trying to contact them because they don't know who to trust anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
How are we talking about Stranger? We're always talking about Stranger Things.
Aw.
Oh, there he is. There she is. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Abby.
Speaking of Stranger Things, just take a moment to look at these beauties right here that I just picked up today.
Looks good.
It's the next installment of the Stranger Things Dark Horse comics.
Very
And
cool.
this one is going to be focused more on a number 6. There's a number 6.
Is it number 6? Like
Yeah.
like 11 is 6?
Yeah, see, that's supposed to be the goal right there.
Okay. And 6, what is her power again?
We don't know yet. This is the first time she's been introduced
Oh.
in the comic series.
That's interesting.
That's what I love about the comics. In the comics, it always gives you something more that you do not see on the show.
That is true. Yeah, because Star Wars did a lot of that with the comics, right? They had a Finn backstory and they had a Poe backstory.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going back to Star Wars. We're going to move on to the conclusion of the original trilogy, Return of the Jedi. Now the thing about Return of the Jedi is that it's very, very bland and impersonal, and it's kind of like the stepchild of the trilogy. So we're just going to say what our general thoughts is on it, and we'll just move on. So what did we think about Return of the Jedi?
When I think of Return of the Jedi, I think of that song. Return of the Mac. Return of the Mac. You know that song?
No. Abby, where'd you go?
Where'd you
Oh,
go?
I got disconnected.
You got disconnected?
Yeah, hold on. Let me try to reconnect.
Okay.
You don't know this song and you listen to Biggie and Tupac and all of them?
Who is it by? Oh, there you are. You're back.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, who is it by?
Mark Morrison.
Oh, sorry. I only listen to good music.
Oof.
Okay. Very cool.
Okay.
Okay. So, what did you think about Return of the Jedi besides that it reminds you of a song?
Now let Abby go.
Abby, what do you think?
It's definitely, well, I have really mixed feelings on it, honestly. There's things that I really, really like about it and also things that I really don't like about it.
Yeah.
I think the first act and the third act are pretty strong, and the third act is arguably the strongest third act out of the 3 original movies.
Mm-hmm.
But the in between Jabba's palace and the final showdown on Endor is just kind of like just bland, kind of unforgettable. Nothing really happens of interest, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. It's a very mixed bag for me.
All right. Now, what are some of the things that you didn't like about the film besides the weakness of the second act?
Let me think. It's been a while since I've seen this movie too,
Mm-hmm.
so I have to remember like everything that happened in it.
Yeah.
I did not like Luke's character. That is one thing that I can say for sure. He comes across as very like haughty, holier than thou kind of thing. Like he's kind of this brash like kid throughout the trilogy, and then suddenly he comes back in this one and he's like, yes, I am a Jedi and I am like better than all of you kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
he's like, I am a Jedi Knight now. I am cool and better than everyone, right?
Even though I never completed my training.
So, and what did you guys think about Slave Leia in this film?
Oh, do you want to talk about Slave Leia?
Yes.
Okay, you tell us how you felt about Slave Leia without drooling.
She gets a thumbs up. Carrie Fisher, rest in peace.
yeah.
Remember that she's watching you.
Yeah, he's behind me. Ooh. All right. So what about?
I thought that outfit, like that costume. I mean, it's iconic. It's fucking iconic, and only she could wear it, and she wore it well, and she was like legendary. Like you know, definitely Rip Carrie Fisher. Like
It was all over the promotionals and the box art and everything.
oh yeah, because they know that sells.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Abby?
Again, I have mixed feelings about it. On one hand, she's really hot, so I'm
Oh,
like,
snap.
hell yeah, man. But on the other hand, I don't really like how it's basically used as the most iconic of her outfits.
Oh.
Like, other than her episode 4 outfit, it's kind of frustrating that she's her like second most iconic outfit is like this very heavily sexualized outfit when that's like not really her character at all.
No, but it never was. The one who put that on her was Jabba the Hutt. Like Leia wouldn't be wearing no shit like that. Like from the very beginning when you see her in A New Hope, she's always dressed classy, always dressed nice. And I know that it sucks that it was made an iconic outfit, but really she has others too that are iconic. They were just introduced like after that. I think the very like mentioned, because she's like older. So like when we see her in the other films, we're like, whoa, like she looks really awesome.
Mm-hmm. All right. So moving on from Return of the Jedi. Okay, so the Rebels win. Yay! Peace is restored to the galaxy. Darth Vader is done. The Emperor's dead. Hooray! Hurrah! Hurrah! Now we're gonna go even further back in time with the prequels.
Are we
Before we do that, can I add an amendment?
Yeah. What's going on, Abby?
I just want to say really quick that I know people really like to show them the special editions of the original trilogy, but I have to say I highly, highly, highly commend George Lucas for replacing the Ewok celebration at the end of Return with the Victory celebration, because it is so much stronger as a musical piece, and it makes the ending so much more powerful and emotional, and it's one of my favorite tracks in the entire Star Wars soundtrack. And out of all of the bad that came out of the special editions, that was a very, very good thing, and it's so much better than Ewok Celebration.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah. I also
love that piece.
Yeah, I also really liked the Anakin Force Ghost using the same actor from the prequels. I forgot his name.
Hayden Christensen.
Christensen, yeah. When they used
Yeah.
Christensen as the Force Ghost, I thought that was really cool.
That's what I thought she was talking about. I was glad that they did that because then it did not make any sense after they showed him. How are we not going to talk about the epic third act? Like, that was awesome because that was like the first time that you see Darth Vader like he could have been good. And that's so important because that also plays into Kylo Ren's character. You know, he was just like him, you know. In a way, you know, they're both, you know, the same where they were turned to the dark side.
Yeah.
And you see that Darth Vader, you know, kills Palpatine, you know, because he didn't want Luke to die.
Yeah, and he was still the chosen one.
Yeah, he has that whole, you know, that scene where he makes him take his mask off or whatever, and he dies that way. Like, it's just like, you would not expect that. Like, you didn't expect it to go that way at all. So that was another great twist.
And that he's like just like a shriveled up person and not such a big baddie as everyone thought in the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then Luke is like, I will save you from the dark side, Father. And then when his nephew has an inkling of joining the dark side, he's like, time to die. Da, 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 da. But anyway.
He was scared, okay? He didn't want the same thing to happen. Obviously, he saw what happened with, you know, with Anakin, with his dad. So he did not want the same thing to happen.
Yeah. So, moving on after that, okay, everyone's happy, yay!
Yeah, I like the happy ending, because it's a happy ending for Luke, Leia, and Han. You know,
Yeah.
oh, you know, you think nothing else could go wrong, but...
Yeah, but so we thought. But before we get on that, we're going to look into the origin story of the great Darth Vader in episode uno. That means one.
This is basically what all the prequel trilogies are based upon. Like, it's basically showing you how Anakin became Darth Vader.
Yes. And this one, we're going to in episode 1, The Phantom Menace. We follow a younger, like a 20-something-year-old Obi-Wan Kenobi and his master, Qui-Gon Jinn, played by Liam Neeson. And
Obi-Wan is played by Ewan McGregor.
Yeah, Ewan McGregor, yeah. And it's just, we basically see how they meet Anakin, and we finally learn that he was actually born into slavery.
And we see how even when he was presented to the council, they were like, we got some mixed feelings about him, bro. And then they still went with the training.
Yeah, it kind of makes me feel a little sad about that because they believe, because he was born into slavery and nobody really cared for him except for his mother. And when the one person who believed in him, which was Obi-Wan, he presented him to the council, and the council was like, and they didn't even want him. But
it wasn't Obi-Wan that presented him to the council. It was Qui-Gon.
Qui-Gon, okay, yeah.
Yeah, he really cared about it. He was the one that was pushing for it, and Obi-Wan was like, I don't know, maybe we should do this to the council. But then Qui-Gon died, and then Obi-Wan felt like he owed it to him. After he died.
So, Abby, I know that a lot of people don't like the prequels. What do you have to say to that?
My opinion on the prequels is actually pretty controversial. I actually like the prequels more than the original trilogy. Now that's not, oh shit, I have just lost connection again. Here, hold up. Let me connect real quick. But as I'm doing that, I want to clarify to say that's not that I necessarily think that the prequels are better made, but I personally like them better.
I think you like them better because of Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
Do you like that? Do you think he's a dreamboat?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, snap.
He is.
I don't know. He comes across really creepy in the films, though.
Well, yeah, because that's how he turned. He turned that way. Like,
but really creepily though. He's like, I've seen you in my dreams, milady.
Yeah,
How big is the world?
he's very incelly in episode 2, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think he really comes off that way in episode 3, but episode 2 is, yeah.
Yeah. So.
He does, because he's like, he's been shut down, like, as a Jedi to never feel this. You know, they're like, you're not supposed to fall in love. Like, he can't talk about it to anybody.
Yeah.
So literally when he tells her, like, pouring these emotions out that he's not been able to talk to about with anybody else. So,
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
And the thing about Phantom Menace is Lucas finally regains the reins of the Star Wars films because Return of the Jedi and An Empire Strikes Back were both made by two different people that were not Lucas.
Yeah.
And this time Lucas is back on the director's chair making Star Wars movies. And how do you think that return to form handled with the franchise, especially in this first bit?
There's a very popular sentiment amongst Star Wars fans that I very heavily agree with, that Lucas is really good at coming up with ideas, but he's not as good at executing them. And that really does come across in the prequel trilogy, where like there's the ideas there and the settings and the concepts are really, really strong, but just the execution is kind of lacking. And I think that if Lucas had someone there to like rein him in more, as he did in the original trilogy, it could have been a lot better.
Yeah. And especially with the rise of CGI, which came out, and he just went all over the place with CGI.
Yeah, well, this is one of the reasons why I love it too. Why I love the prequel trilogy, because you get to see like actual sound effects that don't. I mean, sound effects. You get to see like effects like that look real.
I don't know about that. I don't know if it looks that real.
Well, it was better. I mean, think about it. You go from seeing these shitty ass like film, effects.
I don't know. I find them very charming.
I mean, look, you go from freaking there's like a 16-year gap in effects. That was definitely much better.
Yeah. And also we learned that the Force is actually just little particles called midichlorians. What do we think about that?
I think that's actually something that Star Wars, or people that watch Star Wars, misconstrues a lot too, is that the Force is midichlorians, which actually isn't quite the case. The midichlorians aren't the Force, it's just they're an organism that denotes Force potential. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. See, you're teaching us.
She's on the show for a reason.
Yeah. So, also the thing about the prequel trilogy is that it does have a lot of references to Greek literature and Judeo-Christianity, namely English Renaissance literature, specifically the Milton novel Paradise Lost, where Lucifer was cast out into hell and tries to reclaim everything, tries to overthrow God and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of reminiscent to how Anakin wants to overthrow the Jedi Council and also potentially the Emperor for a brief minute. And it was also kind of like that, and it also kind of references Homer's The Iliad, where namely the character of Achilles, where Achilles is like this this super high up general, and he thinks he's better than everyone else, but ends up that his cockiness is his downfall when he gets shot in an arrow with a heel. Similar to how Anakin also believes that he is, better than everyone on the Jedi Council, and that ended up being his downfall as well. Do you agree with that, Abby?
To a degree.
To a degree? Why? What?
Yeah.
What? Okay, what's the degree that you don't agree with?
I don't think that he necessarily thought that he was better than everyone else,
Okay.
He did think that he was, like, one of the most powerful, like, he did obviously, like, think very highly of himself, but at the same time, it was kind of granted because he was very strong in the Force, and he was a very powerful, like, he was a very good pilot, and he was very good in combat. I think, I need to collect my thoughts a bit.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things of his downfall is that he couldn't accept that he can't save everyone.
Yeah. You can't say,
That was one of his biggest things, and you can kind of see that throughout, especially in episodes 2 and 3, that he's, like, obsessed with trying to save everyone, and, like, they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and his intentions were good, and they just ended up getting more and more corrupted for various reasons that we'll get into later, I'm sure.
Yeah. And then,
Also, the intensity of the love that he had for Padme.
Yeah. Now,
that played a big role in his downfall.
It's because he was very afraid that he was gonna lose Padme in childbirth or whatever, because he has that dream that Padme is suffering and dying, and that really freaked him out, and that's what kind of drove him into the dark side and everything.
Yeah.
And so, in my opinion, in your opinion, what do you think ultimately drove Anakin to become Darth Vader? What made him go to the dark side?
It's kind of an example of the perfect storm. There's so many things coming together that eventually drove him to where he ended up.
Finally, like, gets pushed over. I mean, there's people in his ear. Palpatine is in his ear. Talking to him about the dark. Him being able to. I think he said something to him like they could bring people back from the dead or something like that, to where he thought that they could save Padme.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was in his ear with that, and then he was having issues with Obi-Wan as well, and just like she said, it was just a lot of stuff that finally just drove him there.
Yeah. Like when he was first admitted into the Jedi Council, but not granted the rank of Master, he felt really cheated about that, and then when he learned the inner workings of the Jedi Council, he learned that these people are kind of corrupt. They're not documenting things properly. They're doing things under the table, all that kind of stuff.
He was like, maybe this point of view that he had was that maybe there wasn't really a good side, but it was corrupt regardless, and he just really loved Padme and wanted to be with her.
Yeah, and then there was the Emperor, the guy who became the Emperor, who was the only person who seemed to be, I suppose, honest with him, but ended up just using him to get what he wanted, to basically strong arm the Jedi. But that's why he kind of gravitated toward Palpatine, was because he felt like he was the only one who trusted him, and that's probably the reason. What do you think, Abby?
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And there's, especially in episode 3, there's a part that I don't think a lot of people really notice or talk about that really, really illustrates why he, especially in the confrontation between Palpatine and Mace Windu, why he chose to attack Mace Windu as opposed to letting him finish Palpatine off. So at the very beginning of the movie, whenever they're going to rescue Palpatine from Dooku, Anakin defeats Dooku, and he has the two lightsabers at his neck, right?
Yeah.
And Palpatine says the words, or wait, no. Hold on, I gotta get the series of events in order. So Palpatine pressures him into killing Dooku, and Anakin gives in and executes him. And as soon as he does, he goes, I shouldn't have done that. It's not the Jedi way. And Palpatine replies with, he was too dangerous to be kept alive. And I think Anakin kind of internalized that and was like, okay, well, yeah, maybe, but that wasn't the Jedi way. And then you fast forward to whenever Mace Windu and Palpatine are fighting, and Anakin is having this internal conflict of choosing between the people that he thinks are right, and then, or like the good guys basically, and then the person that will help him save his wife. And as Mace Windu is about to execute Palpatine, Anakin tries to stop him. He's like, I need him. And Mace Windu says he's too dangerous to be kept alive. Which, as you remember, Anakin had already noted that is not the Jedi way. And in that point in time, he realizes that there is basically no difference between these two people that are in front of him right now, except that one of them is promising to help him save his wife, and the other one won't give a shit.
Yeah.
And that's like, that's, I think, one of the biggest reasons that he decided to go with Palpatine.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And so what did you guys think about Anakin's journey into becoming...
Yeah, and then there was another thing that he did where he killed all those kids.
Oh, yeah, when he killed the younglings.
Well, first he kills all those kids and women, at that tribe where they had killed his mom,
Yeah.
remember?
Yeah, not just the men, but the women and the children too, right?
Yeah, so he slaughtered everybody in there. And then later on, whenever he finally, is under Palpatine, and Palpatine instructs him to go kill all of the remaining Jedi who are like kids in training, and he goes and he slaughters all of the kids in training too. So like he was like definitely dark side.
Yeah.
When he slaughtered, those first people.
Yeah. So to make sure that the Jedi way doesn't survive through the next generation, there is this story on set where when Ewan McGregor was delivering the line, he killed the younglings. He put his hand up against his mouth, and apparently it's supposed to show that, according to the story, that he was trying not to laugh when he said the line. He's like, he killed the younglings.
Sometimes you don't know why you get the giggles on set, bro. Like, it's happened to me. Like, we're saying lines, and it's like lines that I've already said, and there's nothing funny about them, but you just get the giggles on set.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know why.
But I don't know. It's a funny story that kind of adds to it. So also, what another thing that Lucas wanted to tell in the portrayal of the prequels was how a republic could become a totalitarian government, and how fascism could come arise. Like, and he would explain how when Hitler became the Führer and when Mussolini became the leader of the Italian Empire, and how Franco came into power, it wasn't through a lot of blood loss or extremely violent ways. The same thing with Napoleon. It was basically kind of given to them. They were voted on them by the people. Same thing with Stalin as well. And Castro. I don't know about Castro, but those guys. And it's kind of like mirrored in Star Wars as well, especially with that famous line that Padme said, so this is how democracy dies. With what?
Thunderous applause.
Thunderous applause, that's right. And it's kind of like reminiscent of that.
Oh, I was disagreeing with what you're saying.
Okay. So, what did you guys think about how Lucas told the story about how fascism could become the main government over democracy?
I think he did it well because he showed the main issue with that is the corruption. You know, he made it seem, you know, made the audience aware of how easy corruption is and how it is done. You know, it's at the end of everything.
Right. What do you think, Abby?
It's honestly it's actually one of the biggest reasons that I prefer the prequels over the originals is the political conflict, which I know is a reason that a lot of people don't like the prequels, just because they're like, oh, I don't want to watch like a bunch of space people discuss politics. I want to watch people hit laser swords against each other. But I really enjoyed watching how Palpatine manipulates. He originally creates like the conflict between Naboo and the Trade Federation to get him in, or to get the chancellor that is currently in power, who is indeed corrupt, out of power so that he can put himself into power, and then use the separatist movement against the granted corrupt republic to, again, like, take over power and everything like that. And it's also a big reason that I love the Clone Wars cartoon, is how they go into, like, the politics of everything and showing all the manipulation and corruption and everything that's going on in that. And yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I loved watching it unfold.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And it's also because they show like how it all began and how even though they're like, you know, out in the stars and outer space, they're still trying to be like, they're still for the people. They're still a democracy. They're still, you know, even though we're here on Earth and we have, you know, political shit going on here, they very much have it over there as well. So it's kind of like, you know, something where we, the audience, could relate to. So I like that they did that. Yeah.
So after the journey of Darth Vader, and then all of a sudden the Empire comes back, and then the Rebellion does their thing, and then the Empire kind of falls apart. Now we go into the sequel trilogy, or what is released of it, because right now only 2 installments have been released as of recording.
And according to my brother, they fucked up the movie.
That's what people say just to be like, I'm smart.
He said that on The Last Jedi that it did not make sense for Finn and that other girl to go and break into that ship because the standing commander of their fleet had already like decided something else or whatever. I don't know. He said something about that. He's like, that part did not make sense for them to go over there. They have to leave the ship or something like that. I don't know.
So, Disney approached Lucas, and Disney was like, "Hey, you want to give us Star Wars for $1 bajillion?" And then he was like, "Sure, give me the moolah." And
this is a 10-year gap since the prequel trilogy that we were just talking about.
Yes.
10 years later, they still making bank.
Yeah. So and then we say the rise of a new Titan, one by the name of Kathleen Kennedy and the Walt Disney Company. So the first one we gotta talk about is the first installment is The Force Awakens, which was made by one J.J. Abrams. And it was mostly made as it was marketed as like a return to form. It's going to be not like the prequels. It's going to be like the original trilogy, the way old Georgie would have wanted it. And I would say he really lived up to that promise. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy this trilogy very much so. I feel like, again, the effects, the CGI effects are even way better than the other one, so that was exciting to see. The costume design, was spot on. It still kept up, with the other trilogy. Of course, the music wasn't going to be hard because the other ones, they had to keep it the same. And the new characters that they introduced are, I don't know, to me they're refreshing. I love Rey, I love Finn, I love Poe.
Yeah.
I love BB-8.
Oh yeah, it's BB-8.
Yeah.
So I love them. I love them. It's just the only thing that I don't like. I guess I'm sure you could guess.
What?
Is kind of fucking bitch ass Ren.
You don't like
him.
You don't like Ren? You don't like that he murdered Solo?
He's a little bitch. I don't like him. He's like a bitch.
All right, Abby, do you like him?
He is actually my favorite of the new characters in this new trilogy.
He's my brother. My brother is like in love with Kylo Ren. Anytime that Adam Driver's like on a movie, he's like, "Did you see Kylo Ren?" And I'm like, "That's not."
He has a man crush on Ren. All right.
It's so funny because they say Finn Wolfhard could, like, they say that Adam Driver looks like Finn, like if Finn Wolfhard were to grow up.
Oh snap! Oh, we're back to Stranger Things. Oh, who would have thought?
Oh,
So, how'd you like about the Force Awakens returning to form in the old Star Wars films? Abby?
There are things that I liked about it and things that I don't. I love the return to the use of practical effects. I think that they're going to, as the years go on, age much better than the effects from the prequel trilogies, which have already aged pretty poorly, in my opinion. I do like the more gritty look of it as opposed to the more clean look of the prequels, which I think the clean look of the prequels works really well for that series, but I think that the more gritty look in the sequel trilogy ties it in better with the original. One thing I don't really like is that, granted, Force Awakens is meant to be a soft reboot of the original trilogy, but I wish that they would be more kind of outgoing with the planet and the aliens. Like, because you see in the original trilogy, of course, there's only like a select number of planets that they go to. There's like the desert planet, the snow planet, the jungle planet, and the forest planet, all that kind of stuff. And then in the prequels, you have like all these different like really interesting, cool-looking designs, and then you go back to the sequel trilogy, and then you go back to having like the desert planet and the jungle planet and the salt planet that's totally like not the snow because it's salt, you know?
Yeah.
Not saying that I don't like that planet, but I do wish that they would be a little bit more outgoing the way they were in the prequel trilogy.
Yeah. So you're saying that you hope the world building was a bit better?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when Abrams set out to make this film, it was mostly supposed to be a love letter to the original trilogy. He didn't want to put too much of his own style of it. He was basically kind of mimicking the styles of the filmmakers who made the original trilogy, namely Kirshner, who's the guy who made The Empire Strikes Back. And do you guys think that kind of makes the film a little bit derivative? And do you wish that he kind of made it more stand on its own and not piggybacking off of the original trilogy?
No, I think people would have been pissed if he would not have stuck with the trilogy.
Yeah.
To be honest, and I really like this first introduction to this the ending, the sequel trilogy, because this is the first time that they show like the life of a trooper.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can see what this supposed stormtrooper, he's going rogue and he's helping Poe because he's like, this doesn't feel right, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're letting the audience know that these are not just, mind controlled stormtroopers, and they have the ability to, say no well, not the ability that they get in trouble or whatever, but I'm saying like they have someone who actually rebels against them and goes rogue and starts, helping out the good side.
Right. So what do you guys think about Rey? Do we like Rey?
I love Rey.
Yeah, personally, I really like her.
I didn't like that they didn't say who she was. Like, they didn't really say who she was in this first film. They were keeping it a secret. And I was like, who the fuck is she? And then I couldn't figure it out. And I like that she's, girl power.
Yeah. What do you think, Abby?
Like, as far as her as a character or her background?
Like her as a character.
I think that she works pretty well as a protagonist. I think she's very likable. She's really cute. It is frustrating at times how, like, quote unquote, like, perfect she is. At her level, or like her power scaling doesn't really seem authentic. Seeming as like she's able to do all these things that it took like years for the Jedi to learn. But at the same time, by this point in the galaxy, it is likely that it's already like known what kind of abilities the Jedi would do, and like with her, say, using a mind trick on the stormtrooper in The Force Awakens, without ever training to do that, it is possible that she like read about that was something the Jedi could do, and then just kind of like tried it. But other than that, I think she's pretty interesting, especially since at this point in time she's not related to like anyone in the like in the original trilogy and that kind of stuff. She's just kind of like this person that got pulled into everything on accident, and she's not supposed to be there. Like, unlike Luke, who was like, he was pulled in the same way, but it turned out he was like connected to everything, whereas Rey is like completely separate, and she ended up getting pulled into this, and her goal is to like find her place in everything.
Yeah.
And I really like that approach.
Yeah. So you think it's better if she wasn't related to any of the main characters, but that she was just her own thing?
Personally, yes. It is, of course, a possibility that JJ is going to retcon that in episode 9. And depending on how he goes about it, I could be okay with it, but at this point in time where it is now, I am totally satisfied with her not being related to anyone.
Right. And so
I still like that they got rid of Han too. Well, I think it was more that Harrison Ford said he didn't want to play Han anymore.
Yeah.
Is that true, Abby?
Yes. Actually, Harrison Ford wanted Han to die in episode 6.
Oh.
Yeah.
That he had been trying to get Han Solo off, but it's like, why would you do that? Like, Han is one of, like, one of my favorites, and then, stupid Kylo Ren goes and fucking murders him. Yeah. And it's so much worse because that's his dad.
Yeah. So.
He killed your own dad.
So.
And then he killed Leia.
Yes, Abby?
Oh, I was just saying, yeah, on that part, I cried my ass off in theaters. Like,
oh.
Dude.
I cried. I literally cried.
Yeah. So that brings us to Ren. What do we think of Ren? Do we like him? Is he bad? Is he good?
You already know how I feel.
You think he's the best, right? Okay. Abby, you like him. Why do you like Ren?
I find him to be a very compelling character. As far as all of the new characters go, he's by far the one that has the strongest motivations and also like the most compelling conflict. I really like how he's trying to balance being this like, he's trying to be Darth Vader, but he's very much not.
Yeah.
And you can especially see it whenever he first takes off the mask, is that you like expect to be like this really tough, hard, like badass guy, but he's just kind of like this this kind of like goofy looking kid. And
yeah, that's why he's like, that's why I say like he's a little whiny bitch, because that's how they portray him to be at the beginning. He's just like this child, you know, like he's a child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's very much a man child, but I enjoy watching him like struggle.
That undercover boss SNL skit.
Oh, with Driver playing Ren. Yeah, did you see it, Abby?
Oh yes, I love that video.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
It was so hilarious. That's like my only thing that I will watch with Kylo Ren in it. That's so funny.
Yeah. So, okay. So, Ren. We don't like him. He's boo.
No, I love him.
Oh, we love him. Yay. So.
I really like that in these movies and the sequel trilogy that they have that whole thing where they're connected to each other, but in the end you find out that it was Snoke who was doing that. But I like that they did that because this whole time, you know, we're over here thinking like, oh my god, you know, there's a connection between them, or maybe they're going to be like romantically involved now, you know, because they're both like talking to each other in their, you know, visions or whatever. But then you find out that it was all along Snoke who did it, but it ends up being the end of him.
Yeah.
So it works out, but I like that they added that there because it was like something to question the audience question.
Yeah. So that moves on to past The Force Awakens. Now we're going to go into what is proven itself to be the most polarizing installment of the series, The Last Jedi, directed by one Rian Johnson, which a lot of the Star Wars haters dubbed Ruin Johnson. So, what do you think that nickname is justified?
For a lot of people, yes, like I said, my brother says that they messed it up. They messed up that movie, and whenever we talk about this next movie, the third movie, he's all like, I hope they don't mess it up like they did this last one. But they're all saying also about those, like, the bombs when they're dropping, like at the I don't know when it is, but there's like, when they're fighting, there's like a ship that drops these balls, right?
Yeah.
That blow the next ship.
Those are the bomb
But
squad,
then they're like, what about gravity? Like, they wouldn't drop like that, you know, because they like drop straight down from like a distance.
Well, I do have to put this in here. This isn't the first time that we've seen bombs dropped in space. There are TIE bombers in Episode 5, and you see them dropping bombs on the asteroid while they are chasing the crew in the Millennium Falcon.
You just got schooled.
No, I mean, like, I didn't think it was anything different. That was my brother, and I told him that I was like, it's sci-fi. Like, none of this stuff, first of all, really could happen.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it could, but like, we wouldn't be looking at it.
I like believable
like,
stuff like laser swords and laser guns.
Yeah. First of all, it's made up. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, Abby, do you think the nickname Ruin Johnson is justified?
Personally, no.
Okay.
People like to blame everything that they don't like about the new Star Wars on him, which I don't think is fair. Like, I've seen a lot of criticisms of, like, they'll be like, oh, well, we should have had, like, the whole original cast together, and it's all Ruin Johnson's fault that we didn't get that because he killed off Luke. But then it's like, JJ killed Han in Force Awakens before Rian Johnson even got a chance to do anything. Not to mention, like, Luke, there's no way that Luke is gone forever. Like, Luke is coming back. Force ghosts are very much a thing.
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
So
I really like that they also, you know, gave us the backstory, the whole backstory of why Kylo Ren went to the dark side.
Yeah.
You know, the whole, and then why Luke is the way that he is now.
Yeah.
So I like that they showed that.
Yeah. I know that there's a novel written called Bloodlines, which shows the inner workings of the Solo Skywalker family. namely on how Ben became Ren and all that. Did you read that novel, Abby?
I actually haven't.
Oh, snap.
I've been really bad about keeping up with the current expanded universe.
You should probably get on that.
Time to read nowadays, Nate.
Readings for losers. Why can't I just watch it?
No, I'm not saying that it's for losers. I would love to have time to read, but that's what I'm saying. Who has time
Yeah.
to sit down and read now?
So you're saying reading is only for nerds and squares?
I did not say that.
Okay.
Don't put words in my mouth.
Okay. So how do we like Luke in this particular film? Because now he's shown to be like this old, like this bitter shell of the person he used to be, like how we knew him in the original trilogy.
I like it because
honestly, oh no, you can go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, wait, sorry. Go ahead, Abby. Sorry.
Go ahead, Abby.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I actually quite like what Ryan did with his character. I found myself actually liking Luke as a character, which I haven't done since I was like a child. I've personally found Luke's character in the original trilogy fairly uninteresting, save for Empire Strikes Back. But I really liked watching him be more of an unconventional mentor figure, and seeing him be embittered and critical of the Jedi teachings and everything like that. And I thought it was a pretty interesting way to go about it.
Yeah. What were you going to say about it, Abby?
What?
What were you going to say about Luke's character?
Oh, you said Abby.
Oh, sorry. I meant Ruby.
No, I was going to say the same thing that Abby was saying. Like, I love that they showed him in a more vulnerable state, because he's actually, like, going through some things. Like, that was something that he went through that was very traumatic, and now he comes to find out that it led to the death of Han, who, of course, he was, that was his best pal, one of his best pals, even though he hadn't seen him in years or whatever, but it still kind of hurt him, and so he was going mad, like, really, wallowing, I guess I should say, in his misery. And
Yeah.
he was going to keep getting drunk and not do anything. And Rey
on those milk.
was showing up, and Rey gave him hope again,
Yeah. In this one, we kind of learn how his perspective of the Jedi really changed, and how much a person could change in the course of 3 decades from when we saw him last. Because now he's really like, he used to be like really full of hope, but now he's hopeless. And now Rey came in and helped him out, helped him out of the slump. And then there's that whole idea of Yoda coming in, destroying the sacred texts, and saying, "Hey man, you can't be so far up your own butt all the time. Like, let go of just all this nonsense."
Yoda was the one that came around. He's the master that comes to slap anyone around whenever they be acting crazy.
Mm-hmm. And well, the thing about this film, which I think a lot of people disliked about it, is that Rian Johnson did the opposite approach of what Abrams did, and basically made it his own film, instead of just relying on the style of the other films. And I think that what made a lot of people angry about it. And this film is it's very artistic and very handcrafted by Johnson, using his own style. And he constantly alludes to the fact that maybe we should not focus so much on the past. We should probably focus on this new thing, and maybe the fans should probably not be so caught up on what Star Wars used to be and what it could be, and give it room to grow and become a new thing. What do you guys think?
I hope they do that with Stranger Things and they don't fucking end it at season 5 or 4.
Okay. What do you think, Abby?
Yeah, I really like his approach to that. I definitely agree or I thought it was a stronger approach than Abrams, because I thought Abrams was a good way to reintroduce the series while pleasing the most people as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, I found Brian's approach a lot more compelling.
Yeah.
Who's gonna be directing this next one?
Abrams.
Abrams?
Yeah.
Again?
It was originally supposed to be Trevorrow, who is the guy who made Jurassic World. But I don't know what happened. I guess Kennedy was like, get out of here, bring Abrams back in. Do you know why that happened, Abby?
I don't actually.
Oh,
I'm not
no.
entirely sure.
I kind of like the idea of each installment being made by 3 different people, but I guess we're gonna have to see what Abrams does.
I was excited that they would have different directors each movie, each of the 3 movies. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do you think they're gonna go? This is like the end, right? It's like the end of the end. This last movie, other than the little spin-offs that they have, right?
It's gonna be the end of the Skywalker saga. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, the last bit I want to talk about the sequel trilogy is Snoke. What do we think about Snoke?
I don't know. Like, for me, he was gonna get really scary. Like, based off of the other lords that we've seen, I felt like they didn't really try with his character.
Yeah.
As far as visually.
Yeah. So what do you think, Abby?
With what Johnson did with Snoke, I honestly think that was the best thing he could have done with the character, and to put the remaining living characters in a more interesting place. I don't really like the concept of Snoke that much, especially the way that Abrams introduced him, because he's basically just like another emperor kind of thing, except he's like even more powerful, and he built an even bigger Death Star kind of thing.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I'm kind of glad that he's dead, just because it puts the galaxy in a much more tumultuous place for episode 9, whereas instead of it being just another emperor that's in charge for the final showdown, you have this very conflicted, unstable, and not very well-liked leader in charge of the First Order now, and I feel like that'll be a lot more interesting to watch go down, as opposed to having just the traditional big bad evil guy in charge.
Yeah, I agree with that, because a lot of people are afraid that Snoke was going to become the next, just another Emperor, and Ren was just going to become another Vader. What do you guys think about the possibility of the Emperor returning for the Rise of Skywalker?
What Emperor?
The Emperor, the bad guy from there were 2 trilogies.
I thought, wait, which one was the Emperor? I thought Snoke was the only one that
Well, he's dead now, but now people are thinking that the Emperor from the original trilogy is coming back.
No, I think it's mainly going to be... Well, are they talking about Palpatine?
Yeah, that guy.
The only reason why they're saying that is because of that whole, the teaser trailer that came out. Where that person is laughing at the end. So it's it's kind of insinuating that that's Palpatine, but I don't know. I don't think that they would.
Oh, really? What do you think, Abby?
I'd rather it just be a power struggle between, Ren and Rey. I think that would be
yeah.
as it is already.
Do you think Ren and Rey are totally going to smash?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
hope not.
Oh, Abby says yes.
She said yes. I hope that... I do hope... I mean, I would like it for... And only because I know my brother would hate this, but I would like it for Kylo to really, fall in love with Rey. And, for him to, give up everything on the dark side for her. Or for her to, be able to bring peace to him. And him not have to be in the dark side anymore. Or Something like that.
Well, that would be very romantic.
I'm just like, peace, man. No fighting.
Yes.
Let's cut the fighting.
And then it reveals that Rey is actually Luke's daughter. They were cousins the whole time.
No.
No.
So yeah. So now we're gonna have lightning round, 10 minutes to discuss about the spin-offs that happened. Starting with Rogue One. What do we think about Rogue One by Gareth Edwards? What do we think about it?
We're doing a lightning round. How about this? A lightning round. We're gonna talk about each one of the ones that came out.
Yeah, we're just gonna say what we think about it, and then we're moving on.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Are we starting now?
Yeah.
Okay. I really like the concept. I think that if there hadn't been so much studio interference and Edwards was able to just do his original vision, it would have come out a lot stronger. I really liked how he was trying to take it much more closer to reality and very much more warlike. I think the reshoots that you can clearly tell he was forced to do kind of make it tonally awkward, because you have like this really dark, very realistic, gritty war setting mixed with like these like lighthearted jokes thrown in everywhere, and it makes it kind of awkward. But overall, I really enjoyed the movie, and I really love the ending because I'm evil and I like watching everyone die. So, so I enjoyed that. Yeah, those are my basic thoughts on the movie.
Okay. So what do you think, Ruby?
I liked it. I liked that they, had the whole, they plugged in the whole story where Leia actually, got the plans for the Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
But it connected well, and, I'm glad that it fit in well with that story, and it was something that people were interested in because they're like, oh yeah, how did she get that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought it was really cool because Gareth Edwards, he's the guy who made Godzilla, and he's actually really good at making things to scale. Like, you can see how big something is. Like, when you see the AT-ATs walking down the beach, and you see how huge it is, and you see the Death Star, and you see that's super huge. Yeah. And we get to see, like, the massiveness of what the Empire was. And it was very, like, a lot grittier. You could say it's more reminiscent to like Vietnam War movies. It looks a lot like a platoon film. I thought it was really, really cool because it's seeing Star Wars in a new light, and it's a really cool light, especially when we get reintroduced to Darth Vader for the first time in a long time. It was really cool seeing him. Hey Abby. You don't want to choke on your aspirations. High five.
Yeah, boy.
Ruby, give me a high five.
High five.
Okay. Now we're gonna. Huh?
Oh.
What are we gonna say, Abby?
I just want to say really quick. I know a lot of people like complained about that one-liner from Vader. They're like, Vader would never say something like that. But I honestly really liked that moment. I thought it was very reminiscent of Anakin. Like, that's something Anakin would do, especially if you've watched the Clone Wars series. Mm-hmm. He's so sassy, and he's like kind of sadistic like that. He'll like fuck someone up and say like a one-liner about it, and be like very much like, hey, fuck you. I thought that was great.
Yeah, because he still has that consistent personality throughout the films and shows.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to Solo, the production disaster that is Solo, where the original filmmakers, Lord and Miller, were fired because Kennedy didn't think it was Star Wars enough, and then they got in Ron Howard. So how do we think about Solo?
I don't know. I don't think they did a good job casting that.
Yeah. The thing about Heinrich, it's a very difficult job because he's trying to be Han Solo before the events of the original Star Wars, and he's trying to act him the way Harrison Ford would act him. So he's trying to mimic the body movements and the speech patterns of another person playing another character. So that's really hard to do, and I don't think it really successfully made it through, especially when you have all this, especially with under two different directors as well.
I feel like the writing had a big part in that as well. Like I after some time, it took me a minute to get used to him and to be like, okay, yeah, I can see him as Han. Like he just kind of, I had to like very much be like consciously like, yes, this is Han. Like I didn't buy it right away, but the way he was written, I think it played a big role in it, making it hard to buy him as Han as well, because they wanted to do this thing where it was like, oh, he's like a scoundrel, but he has a heart of gold kind of thing. But it was like, that's his arc in episode 4. So like, it's kind of weird watching him go through like the same arc that he goes through in episode 4 again, or like at the same time. And it's like, it would have, in my opinion, it would have been easier to buy him as Han, I think, if he had kind of the opposite arc where he started out as like this kind of, how he did in the beginning of the movie, where he's like this bright-eyed kid that is shit out of luck, but like he's trying to like get out and everything, and then like along the way, like more and more stuff keeps happening to him to make him more cynical and disillusioned and everything, to the point where he's like, okay, fuck all you guys, I'm out for myself, kind of thing. Yeah, and you don't really get to see that in this movie.
Yeah, I think that the film would have worked a lot better if they did that route instead. It would have made a lot more sense too.
I didn't enjoy the Han movie as much as I thought I did. Like I really enjoyed the Lando movie more than that. To be honest.
No, in Solo, like how Rogue One, it was supposed to be like a war spy thriller. Solo was supposed to be a Western. And you do see the resemblance of a Western in there as well. And you do kind of buy it's a Western. And what do we think about Chewbacca's role in Solo?
That's probably the only thing that was good about it. Getting to see, that camaraderie still and how that formed and everything like that. So, of course, we're interested in that. Who isn't? It's Chewbacca.
Yeah. Abby, did you like Solo's Chewbacca?
I did, actually. I liked how, if you read, like, the original extended universe that is no longer canon, it's actually, the way he meets Chewie is vaguely reminiscent of that. In the original canon, he did actually meet Chewie as a slave in the Empire, and he freed him, and that's why Chewie, like, promised him a life debt, which I like how they kind of kept with that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. All right. Any last words about Star Wars before we sign off?
No, because we gotta go.
All right. And so this concludes our Star Wars discussion. I think it was really...
Abby, thank you for joining us, Abby.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I think it was really awesome talking about Star Wars with you. You really know your stuff, and this makes it really awesome to discuss it with you.
Yay, I'm fun.
Yay, Star Wars! All right, I've been Nathaniel Avila. That's been Ruby Rodriguez, and we've been joined with the wonderful Abby McTabby. So, all right, air hug, Abby.
Yeah.
Bye,
Can't see
guys.
me, but I'm air hugging you too.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye.